you will get this file through going to the yellow tag, navigating down, and I've got a folder for you called, which will be sent via WeTransfer, called this one here, called Maxillary Central Study Case Axis. This one here, this is what you're going to get. And when you open that up, you will end up seeing these two pictures. Right, you'll see the Maxillary. Now this view here is called an actual view. And you have the option here to either go to image. If you go to image, you'll get these two pictures side by side and a blank underneath. But you're going to go to plan because we're going to be planning a case, yeah? All right? Yeah. First thing you need to do is we need to look at this view and we need to do a sort of turn this into like a OPG type of view. All right? Because we dentists are used to looking at OPGs. Yeah. And you put your cursor over that screen, and this is the cursor. And if I twist my ball on my mouse, I can move up through the scan, and I'm now going down to the mandible, and I can move and I can scroll up from the mandible through the teeth into fresh air, and then start hitting the maxillary teeth, and I can see the maxillary teeth, and I can see here that there's actually, this is where we've got our edentulous space. I can keep on scrolling through by just twisting the mouse. And we go right the way up, and you can see as we go further up, we can actually see the sinuses, and then we have the start of the orbits here. And these here are the ethmoidal sinuses. And interestingly, this looks like a deviated nasal septum, slightly deviated nasal septum. We carry on down, 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 and we can just scroll up and down through that picture, right? So we're just going through there like that. Now, what we can do is we can actually make that bigger by, if I move my pointer over to here, I can actually make it bigger by just pressing the space bar. See how that, and if I press the space bar again, that becomes smaller. If I move my pointer to this 3D view and press the space bar, it becomes big. Press the space bar, it becomes small. So now we move to there, become big, and I'm going to scroll through this till I get that sort of picture. I can see the edentulous area there. I can see the sort of the starts of the root canals. And what I'm going to do is I want to draw a curve, which is going to represent the curve of my pan. So to do that, I go to this top left-hand corner and I click on this button here, and it will say, once I click on there, these dialog boxes open. You can ignore those, but I can then move that down to there, and you can see there's like a spot. You can see that spot and a little cross, and you can start plotting out the curve that you want your pan to occupy. So again, just so you know, you press on this button here, and then you can start doing your points like that. And we're just going to bring our pointer all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, carry on all the way down like this, bring that all the way to there, and then when you come to the last part, just double click it like so. And that then gives you a complete picture of the whole thing done. All right? Now, if I click out of here, and by just pressing the space bar again, if I click that, you can now see that the bottom two pictures are now occupied, or with these windows here, are now occupied with this one and with the pan view. And if I move my cursor to the pan view and I just click onto that, I can now scroll using the ball. I can scroll through the pan view, right? And I can scroll to get a picture. Probably this sort of picture is the best sort of view. And if I go to this center window and again hit the space bar, I can actually scroll through this using my thing, and I can see different transverse sections of this case. And I hit the space bar again, and I'm out of it. Now, can you see that green line here? Now, if I position my cursor to about this position here, I'll zoom up. So there's the green line. If I position my cursor to this point here and just left click the mouse, the green line will now move to the center. So I can zoom in and out like this. That seemed about the best. You can see how the bones dipped away there. And I've got the green line in the center. If I zoom out of that and I go now and I position my cursor here and I hit the space bar here, I can now see that edentulous area. And this center one is where that green line is. So if you like, this green line here represents that part there, that slice right the way through there. Yeah? And if I go to here on the actual view and I hit my space bar, the green line is actually there between the two teeth, and that's looking at it from the actual view. This is the pterygopalatine canal. And we can see that this is quite large. This could possibly cause us some trouble if we weren't aware of it when we were doing our implant. And we can come out. So we've got the three views. We've got an actual view, we've got a transverse view, and we've got the OPG view. Okay, so we're seeing this now in 3 dimensions. Now that we've done this, what we really need to do is position our implant. So to position our implant, we have to go to our implant library. And to start this, normally what I do is I go to the big view because it's much easier to do things on the big view. So I position this and hit the space bar. And down in this corner here, we have a section saying implants. And if you click on this button here, it will give you a library of all the implants that are on the system. And you can navigate to here and you can find the OsteoTie implant system in there. And I think it's probably under generic, it might be under generic implants. I'll just click on there, OsteoTie, click on there, click onto that. And we've got our implant sizes there in there that we can use. Now, if I click onto any of these ones, like the 3.75 at 10, I can click onto that. And because this hasn't got the library in it, it just gives you a cylinder, right? Because these are generic ones. If I go onto there, we can look at some other implant ones here. We've got Southern implants. So it gives you a whole range of different implants that you can use and the different codes. And this is just a library of implants that are there for you to use. And then we've got our standard implants as well. So there's lots and lots of implants, and they add implant designs all the time. And what we will do is we will send you a full library for OsteoTie. And when you load that library for OsteoTie, which is here, there's 2 brands in the OsteoTie. There's one called BioThread and there's one called UZ. And basically the UZ implant, the thread's pitch is slightly different. So if I click onto the BioThread, it's got the different lengths and sizes, 325 diameter by 10, 325 diameter by 12, 325 by 15. If I go to the UZ range, we have 375s and 4.5s, and these are the different lengths in that range. Now, normally in the maxilla, I like starting off with something like a 15. But I think 15 is probably going to be a bit big in this case. So I'm going to go for 3.75 at 12. And if you wanted you could try and measure it using the system, but it's just as easy to sort of roughly pick one to start with. And then if it's not right, change it later on. So we're just going to click onto that. And when we click onto it, we get this STL file. And this is the 3-dimensional file of the implant. And we want to use this implant. So we're just going to go down to this section here that says validate. Validate. So you're going to go onto there, and then we come back to our pan view. Now, if I move this cursor over the implant, can you actually see that we've got a picture of an implant and a little cross? So there's a picture of it, and we want to position that in about this area here. And if I click, what will happen is that will just drop the implant there in that position. Obviously, if I'd clicked over here, the implant would have been in the sinus. So I could, if I want, go Z, I could go select my implant, go for this one, go to validate, and I could put my implant in the sinus if I wanted. Obviously, we don't want the implant in the sinus, so what we can do is we can move over to the implant, and as I move on to the implant, you'll see the shape of the cursor changes to like a little cross. And I can now move, I can grab and move that implant anywhere I want, and I'm going to move it to this position here. And I want it midway, let's say, between the central and the lateral incisor. Yeah. Another way of doing that is I could just position it. Oh, don't quite know what's happened there. Right, I'll just go quickly back to the plan. I'll just quickly do the curve again. Right, so I'm going to scan in and out of there. It's that position there. I can position that green line, as I said, in the middle by clicking it there. I can go to my implants. I can pick my 375 by 12, validate it, and then I can just position it in this rough area like that. Change it to the square. You can see the square now appearing. And I can move it into this position here, right? Is everybody hearing this all okay and following what I'm doing?
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So now I move this to here, but obviously this is just seeing it mesiodistally. I need to see it in other views as well. So let's look at it in the transverse section. And I move my cursor to here, click onto there, and look what we can see straight away. We can see straight away that this is not, you know, it's going to perforate out labially. So we really don't want that happening. So what I'll do is I'm going to slide this around and change it so that it doesn't actually perforate out labially. And I can move this around and move it down and have a little look and see how this is going to look. Right?
Yeah.
See? So now, this is just moving it in this sort of, you could move it outside. If I moved it out there, it'd obviously be in the labial sulcus. And I could move it there. And I could, if I want to make this implant longer, because this is a 12, what I can do is if I move the cursor over the side of the implant, it changes from a pointer, it changes to like a little eye, meaning implant. If I click on that, I can actually sometimes stretch it and make it a bigger implant. So I've jumped from 12 to 15. And if you look down here, the length has changed to 15. So that gives me the option to do that. And now I've changed it to a 15. So let's have a little look. So now we've positioned it. If I go back to here and I scan, you can see the implant. You can't see the whole implant as before because the implant is tilted, it's angled. So as you scroll through there, you're seeing different bits of the angle. If I go to the actual view and make that bigger and I scroll, we can actually start to see how the implant is positioned at different levels and how it's starting to angle back. And I'm looking at the relationship of the implant to the canal here, the pterygopalatine canal, and I'm looking at the position of the implant mesiodistally in relation to the other teeth. And if I wasn't happy, I could move it slightly. But this would be angling it now. If I moved it like this, I've moved it into the side of the tooth now. It's actually tilted. And if I go to the three-dimensional view, and I can show you this, you can see how it's tilted it. Yeah? So we don't really want it like that. So we can grab hold of it here if we want, and I can move it back from this picture, or I can move it back from this picture here. I'll position the cursor, the green cursor, over there again. I can see my implant. I can look at it from this position. And it's a little bit, you can see this is a bit close to that tooth. I'm going to move it back into the middle. And I'm going to scroll up and down and see what it looks like at the different levels. And then I might think, well, it's a bit close to that lateral incisor. Let me look at it in this view. And by using the roller ball, I can see how it is in relation. I might say, well, let me just move it a little bit closer to that central incisor. I can look at it in this view. And I can say, oh, that's looking all okay. And there is our implant precisely placed. Now, obviously, we're going to make a guide for this later on. Now, what we can do also is we can look at this three-dimensionally on this view here. Now, a lot of CBC machines, they produce a three-dimensional image. For diagnostic purposes, if you're a radiologist, you're not really that often that bothered with the three-dimensional view. You want the X-ray views. But when it comes to planning and positioning implants, then it really is useful. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch on and off certain parts of this image. And one of the things we can do is switch things on and off. Okay, so we can look at how the image looks. Now, what we've got here superimposed is an STL file which represents our stone model. So I'm going to switch that stone model out, and to do that all I need to do is go to this imported object and click onto this little thing that looks like a speaker. Just click on that and the model's gone. Right? And this is a virtual wax up which has been done. You don't need to worry about that. If I want to get rid of the virtual wax up, I can just click on that and it's gone. And what we have now is a picture, if you like, of that implant coming out like that. I can look at it from the nose. Now, in order to turn the image around like this, what you do is you just position your cursor there and then right-click, and keeping the mouse button down, you can right-click and you can move that around. And one of the things I'm looking for here is to see if I can see if there's any perforation in the nose of the implant. And actually, if I look very, very carefully, I can just make out. Now, if I want to see that better, I can left-click, and then all I need to do is right-click, push the thing, sorry, is it left-click? Oh, no, sorry, it's press down on the rollerball thing on your mouse. If you press down on the rollerball on your mouse, keep it down and just move. You can see how I can zoom in on the image? Yeah? Yeah. I'm going to zoom in, I've right-click, I've pressed down on the rollerball, and then I'm going to left-click, and I'm going to just, and look, I can actually make out the implant there. So it's actually perforated. If I go with the rollerball, I can zoom up a little bit, and I can just tilt it a bit. See the threads just coming through into the nose there? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's doing a 15. So this is the sort of thing you might want to check. You can look at the sinuses, you can look at the nose. So you might say, oh, that's maybe a 15 is getting a bit ambitious. Sometimes if you've got very little bone, you might accept it's gone through to the nose. Other times you wouldn't want it through to the nose. So I'm going to click on the space bar again to get us back to this normal picture. If I want to go back to a normal size on there, I can just move to this little icon in the top corner there, click on that, and it sets everything back to normal in as far as that picture's concerned. And then if I go onto there again and make it bigger, you'll see there's no teeth there. And this is because the image has been what they call segmented, and the teeth density has been done on another density. And if you look up here on this segmented object button here, if I right-click this here, I can actually bring I can click the model in and out. If I click the model, if I all I'm left with is the implant on the end of a carrier. Because I've selected the jaw there, I can click it in and out. If I set the teeth and click here, I can bring the teeth in and out by right-clicking on them. So now I've right-clicked and brought the teeth in, and I can right-click and take the jaw out. Now what we've got is we've actually got the roots and the implant in relation to one another. So just to go through this, because this is a segmented model according to density, we can now switch in and out different things. So if I right-click here, I can switch in and out the bone. If I right-click here, I can switch in and out the teeth. Yeah? Right-click here, bone, and I can have the bone and that, or I could take the teeth out. So now I've got teeth, and this is quite good if you wanted to look at the sockets for doing something like an immediate. I can zoom in and I can look at the sockets and see what it is. If I was doing an immediate, I can look and see the sockets on. That's quite good if you're doing immediate implants, but we'll look at that another day and see how, how we can play with that. So this is how the software works. We'll bring the teeth back in. Now, obviously, if I go, this is where the 3D model is good, because we get to see the relationship of the implant post, which is this thing here, in relation to the teeth. So from a restorative point of view, that's very useful, because obviously we don't want our posts coming out there. Now, you can switch on and off that extension by going to the tool, and you go to here and you can hide the extension, or you can bring it back in. So there's times when you don't want to see it, and again we'll talk about those times. So basically this is in the wrong position. This is going off. So if I turn it to this like little wheel, I can move it and bring it more in line with everything. Yeah? And we're happier with that. And I can take the extension off, just left click, hide the extension. And if I look at that, I can see that's quite buried. I can't see the implant coming out of there anywhere. That's good. Go back to 0, going to that one, zeros it all again. Put my extension back on. The extension is very useful for looking at how things line up and all the rest of it. So I'm going to put the extension back on. Here's the extension. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a virtual tooth in there. And to put a virtual tooth, first of all, we need to have like our model. So remember, this was our model, and we'd scanned our model earlier. So by going to this little thing here and left clicking it, just on there, just click onto there and click onto there, it brings in the model. So I click it, I can unclick it by just clicking on this, takes the model out. Make sure this is highlighted green. Clicking on there puts the model back in. So the model has been superimposed on the radiographic images of the teeth. So we've now got the model superimposed on there. And we can then go to this section here, which says virtual wax up. And again, by clicking on that little speaker button, left clicking onto it, the tooth comes in. And look at that. You see, if that was going to be a screw retained tooth, that is perfectly positioned for a screw retained tooth. Yeah? Perfectly positioned for that. Yeah? So now we can, now all we've got to decide is, are we going to accept that, or are we going to be happy with the thing popping through the nose? Or do we want to go for a shorter one? If we want to go for a shorter one, we could drop it back down to 12 if we wanted. So this would work out okay for a screw retained central incisor, if this is what we want to go for. And this might be a very nice one to go for screw retained. So we've got 15mm, 3.75 implant screw retained. We can click out of that again, and I can go to the pan view, and by twisting the ball on my mouse, I can see the position there. I can position the green lines over to there. Click onto that, click onto the view here, and now I can see what this looks like in relation to the transverse view. Now I might think, oh, that's looking a little bit thin in that area on that view there. And if I can scroll through it, I can say, well, it's looking a bit close to the labial. Maybe I'd feel happier if I just moved that one slightly and I just grabbed hold of it and I just moved it in a bit to give me a bit thicker bone. And I might want to move it up a bit so I don't end up in the nose so much. And then what I might do is come out of there. But look, this looks a little bit, now palatally, it looks a bit thin in that area there, so I might want to move it back a little bit. Yeah, and then I can come out of there and I can go back to the 3D image and I can just rotate that. And by just doing that, you can see it's actually not coming through the incisal edge so much. I don't know if it's coming through, hardly through the nose. I can zoom up on the nose. I can see, look, I can see it there. All right, can you see me moving it in the nose?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I could, if I want to try and, I could slide it out of the nose a bit. Dip it out of the nose, yeah. Then zero it round again. Go on to this section. And this is what it's beginning to look like now. So I think we pretty well quite optimally placed that in all, in all its best positions. And then when you're happy with that, they will now make a template, which will be the next bit we'll be talking about. And some of you, when you come to see in the practice, will be using the guide system that will actually place this implant exactly where we need it to be.